Hi and welcome to the bookingkit weekly help talk. Pleasure to have you here today. Pleasure to be with you today. As you know, our goal here today is to basically to compile all kind of information to give you inspiration on what kind of tips can you take away from how other operators behave, how the market is evolving, how especially the China market is evolving. So we keep you updated here. And we do get our information from talking with a lot of experts. We are talking with a lot of industry veterans to understand, okay, how did they cope with earlier crises? And so we are here today again in this week to update you with all kinds of information. I'm very happy to have two of the industry experts here today. So not only I am talking to them, but you can ask questions today as well here in the chat. So I've here, and you already see him in the picture, Samuel, who is the Europe lead for Headout. Welcome, Samuel. And we have Max from Exit VR and Exit Life Escape Games here with us today. So you and I have the chance to ask all kinds of questions to Max and Samuel in a minute. Before we dive into this discussion with the two of the industry experts, I'll quickly update you on the latest developments and how we see the stage of the crisis evolving. So bear with me. I'll quickly walk you through basically saying, okay, where do we stand today? So we'll give you some current updates and then we'll dive right in with our guest experts here today with me in the studio or connected also from his kitchen in Samuel. And so you also get the opportunity at all levels to my presentation, to our guest experts, to ask questions. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to post them directly in the chat. And this was a very interactive format in the last week, so I'm very happy to answer all kinds of questions, and so are our guests here today in the studio with us. Let's dive right in without further ado into where do we stand in the current crisis. As you know, we compile a lot of information from experts. We talked to more than 30 different experts in the last week, to resellers, to online resellers, to operators based here in Europe, but also based in Asia, to have a better understanding, okay, where do we stand? What's the current stage of the crisis? And what is important to us is that we don't have any superior knowledge in the sense of, okay, what is the government doing? What is on a global industry level? We are no experts, but what we can do is for the industry of tours, activities and attractions to compile the information, derivate, okay, what's important for you maybe as operator, what's important for you as participant in this industry. And so we don't really know how long each of the stages are. So 1/3 of the world's population is currently in lockdown stage. But what we can do is we can share an understanding, okay, what are the different stages this market will develop from? So when it recovers, what are the different stages? And then give you a model, what kind of thinking can you apply to, okay, how should I behave in the different stage? So currently we are in this stage 1 here in Europe. This is the lockdown phase. I think Italy was the first country in Europe to put the population in lockdown. So where we are now in lockdown for around about 5 weeks. Here in Germany, we are in the lockdown for around about 3 weeks in. So this is the first stage. What does that mean for tours and activities, for attractions? It means basically they are closed by law or de facto closed. So the market volume for tours, activities, and attractions is de facto 0. That's also in line what we are currently seeing on our platform on European operators across all segments. So it doesn't matter if you're running an amusement park or a boat tour, that's just closed by law. On the second stage, that's what we call getting back to the new normal. So getting back slowly in reality. So it starts with the end of the lockdown. When there will be an end of the lockdown. And then we are in the second stage where we say, okay, we're going to get back to a new normality. To a new normality we are then seeing post the crisis. And what we are seeing is that China is already in that second stage. So China is already, as of today, in that second stage. And so what we are doing is really compiling the information we are gathering on that market from China, the observations we are seeing, the calls with experts we are having to understand better, okay, how is different dynamics behaving in China? Because this allows us to get a better understanding how will things evolve here in Europe. So on the second stage, and again, we are no health experts, so we can't say how long this stage is going to be, when the lockdown is going to be over, because to most extent, even our governments do not know as of today. But what we do know is typically governments are inclined to reopen tourist activities, attractions, to reopen leisure products quite quickly after the lockdown. And also people are willing to do leisure products again because they have been basically locked in their homes for weeks, for maybe months. So they're willing to do leisure activities again. And what we are seeing is typically that the supply is kept at that stage, and there's more people demanding leisure products than actually people supplying leisure products. What does that mean? Well, in China, for example, they solved it to say, actually, we want to reopen amusement parks, but in order to avoid the risk of people getting reinfected again, they say, okay, you're only allowed to have 1/3 of the normal people in your park you can have there. So if prior to the crisis you had about 1,000 people at the same time in your attraction, now you can have 300 people at the same time at your attraction to minimize the risk of reinfection. So this obviously caps and limits supply. It helps to avoid reinfections. So that's something we also expect here in Europe to have a certain cap on tours and activities and attraction in this second stage of getting slowly back to the new normal. And after that, there will be a third stage, what we call the rebound stage. And this rebound stage will basically be then the new normality after this crisis. What we've seen from the crisis in 2008, 2009 is that it took around about 2 years to recover the travel market. So typically you would expect that in the 2 years after the crisis, after the event, you have like 85%, that's in line with what we saw in 2008, 2009. You have 85% of the earlier travel volume. So travel is there again, is very quickly there again. So it picks up very quickly again, but it stays on lower market volumes than it was before. And second of all, you will expect domestic travel to pick up first and then long haul international travel, because from two perspectives. First of all, people will be more inclined after the lockdown to do shorter travels, so doing activities within their city even, or then doing local like travels. So think in Italy, for example, if you're based in Rome, going to southern Italy instead of leaving the country. And this development will be supported by actually travel bans being longer there, because there is a certain incline by governments, even if they solved the crisis, the pandemic in their region, they'll be inclined to actually keep travel bans up to avoid having reinfections by tourists from other regions. So we would expect to be certain travel bans to last a lot longer than the crisis itself. Hence, we would expect to pick up domestic travel before international long-haul travel. So that's a bit our thinking around, okay, there's different stages. Again, we took a lot of expert calls. We talked a lot with different providers, with operators, with resellers, with industry experts. Like within the week, we talked with various experts to get a better understanding there, to learn how things evolve in China as well. And again, I'm very happy to have two of these experts, Samuel from Headout and Max from Exit, here with us today. So before we go in a concrete question and answer setting with the two of them, just quickly evolved and derived from that model. What does that mean on a timeline perspective? Again, no one of us has a concrete idea. Even our government don't know fully to what we call that the exit plan is. So the exit from lockdown is, and it's going to be. So we can't really say, okay, how long is each of the stages going to be? What we can do, obviously, is we can model it to certain scenarios. And so you can say, okay, in an optimistic scenario, you would say, okay, the lockdown is something round about 3 months, 12 weeks. And then comes a fade-in period for half a year, and then we are in the rebound period. What would that mean? That would mean that for the summer business in 2020, we are in this fade-in period where the market volume is on round about 1/3 of the market volume. And then comes the rebound phases. So the first real business, the real season we'll be seeing again would be the winter 2020 season with, for most of us, also the Christmas season. And in a pessimistic scenario, you would expect the lockdown to be longer, to also the fade-in be lasting longer. And then the first real season again would be the Easter 2021 season in April of 2021. So this would be a pessimistic scenario. Again, about the timeline, we don't really know. What we would invite you to do is to have your thinking around, okay, how will I behave? How do I want to behave in the different phases? How are my customers behaving in the different phases? So you can already, as of today, make up your thinking, how would you structure yourself? So having said that, having given you an update there, if you have questions, please do not hesitate to post them in the chat. And we'll now move over to two of these experts we had a lot of exchange with. So we have here today, again, Max from Exit Live Escape Games based in Berlin and from Exit VR. Very happy that you're here with us today. And Samuel, the European lead for Headout. Headout is a reseller, worldwide online reseller for tours and activities. Thanks for being here with us today. And maybe Max, you have a background doing event management, but explain us what actually is a live escape game. What are you doing? What's your role here in Berlin?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Lukas, for having us here. My name is Max. I'm the CEO and founder of Exit here in Berlin. And to answer your question, we're doing live escape games. So we bring people into themed rooms to escape by doing brain games in a certain matter of time. We have a big GDR bunker directly here in Berlin, and usually we're inviting like 70 players per hour. So we are focused on corporate events. And beside that, since 2016 we created like an VR escape room, which we developed completely here in Berlin, and we licensed this product to around the globe. And yeah, unfortunately, since the 20th of March, there's no player inside our games, virtual or in the real life.
Wow, thank you. Samuel, Headout, you got a background in e-commerce before joining Headout as Europe lead. Tell us a bit about yourself and Headout. I think you're on mute.
So yeah, so much about tech company and everything. Sorry. Right. So yeah, I'm Samuel. I'm French, and for the last 3 years I've been leading the development of Headout in Europe. So Headout is a booking platform for things to do, as we like to say, and with anything to do should be available on the platform. It's from the US. It was started 5 years ago with a heavy focus on New York City initially. Started growing it in Europe 3 years ago. It's now got offices in the US, India, Hong Kong, Dubai, and Berlin for Europe, although all of these are empty now. So we're live in about 40 cities worldwide globally, and that tells you a bit about how our approach is slightly different to the one of most other players, because we're not trying to build the biggest platform with the biggest supply, the biggest cities everywhere. Right away, we're trying to take a much more progressive approach, curated approach, where we co-define the activities, the tours, we curate the supply a lot, and we try to kind of give a very sort of clean platform and cleaned up selection of things, of the best things to do to give to our users. And so that had been actually fairly successful until a couple of weeks back, because we were probably the only player on the market that was both growing very fast and operating in a profitable manner. So that's the nutshell.
Thanks so much for being with us, Samuel and Max. So you just quickly said since 20th of March here in Germany, all leisure products are closed by law. Before that, when was the first time you saw, okay, something serious is coming here, okay, there's something which is maybe not only China, not only Asia, but it's coming to us, and how did you react back then?
Yeah, so I have to answer this question separately. First, for the VR branch, for the VR company, one of my co-founders recognized very early that there could be some regulations of home office. So he talked to all the employees, especially to developers. If they do have the equipment at home, they got goggles for using at home. So this was like the first preparation on this part. For the classic escape room, as we are, our main product is like a live entertainment inside of the bunker. There was no fallback plan for a pandemic like this, so that's why we were very surprised about the power of these regulations in the mid of March.
Thank you. And I imagine, like, for you, Samuel, when was the first time when you guys internally talked, okay, something is coming to us, something evolved us, how did you react? And for all of us joining here today, again, you can ask questions. Chantal just said, okay, there's a chat here in the box, so you can always ask questions if you have any questions, and we'll directly discuss them with our experts here in the studio. We'll try to share some information. Samuel, how was it? When was it? And how did you react back then when it first came on your plate?
Yeah, first I want to say, I think like everyone else, we didn't anticipate how far this would go and how bad things would get. So if anyone is kind of feeling bad for not forecasting this, you shouldn't, because I mean, we have presence in Asia, and so we've been talking about this. Like, we had expected the year to be disappointing. Like in January, we already thought like with no Chinese outbound travel. And with the situation currently in Asian countries, we didn't expect the business in Korea and Thailand to be as good as it could be. But we had no conception that in Europe would be impacted. Then, it got started progressively. The first shock we got was the last week of Feb, where we noticed that advanced booking were slowing down a lot. So people who had trips planned were still booking, like, or if you were in destination or going next week, people who aren't canceling and still trying to actually make that happen. Just normally, actually, in Jan and Feb, you get already quite a lot of bookings for July, for June, and that kind of stopped all of a sudden. Everything that was further than 1 month ahead. And then then I think it went very fast after Italy went under lockdown on the 8th of April. By the 10th, 11th, it was quite clear that this was going to happen everywhere. We suddenly heard that there were recommendations against using public transport in Berlin, so had to organize remote work in a day or two to keep people safe and kind of like help with the effort to contain. But I think last week of March, and then from the days to last week of Feb, and then 8th to 10th of March, it's quite clear that globally it would be terrible.
Interesting. Thanks for sharing, Samuel, Europe lead of Headout. So just quickly, I think one of the topics we instantly all had to cope with very, very much is cancellations. So the first thing is a lot of our customers wanted to cancel. We had to cancel. So how, Samuel, maybe starting with you, how did you cope with the cancellations? How did you manage the cancellations? What was your strategy there? And how did you manage with your customers? How was the customer communication on all these cancellations?
So the first thing we tried to do is, and that we still try as new measures get announced and extensions that impact new bookings, we try to start the conversation always. So to like not let any kind of stress or pressure, because of course like people will get stressed, and if people write to you about canceling and you don't answer right away, they're going to post it on Twitter, and then it's the last thing you need. So we try to proactively like mass write to customers to at least say like, yes, like we're aware that your activity is highly uncertain or will not take place. There will be alternatives offered to you, like your money won't be lost. Give us 48 hours, 72 hours to come back with a concrete solution, because now we know the solutions, but because we first wanted to confirm closures and to align with the suppliers on the policy. So just trying to like anticipate the incoming request to kind of remove stress, show you're there, show that they don't need to panic, they will be fine long term. And then so what we did is, I think the pretty standard, everyone tried to convince people not to just cancel, but either to reschedule or ask for a voucher, basically, or credit directly on their account for us, which is what we did. And what we noticed is that people probably need people are stressed about like their immediate financial well-being also. So to kind of immobilize money to stay with you for something that's leisure-like. There is a need maybe for an incentive. So we gave a 20% kind of bonus to everyone who goes for the voucher solution. So if you have a booking for 100 euros, then you get 120 euros of credit, and that's actually worked quite well because that's about half of customers who went for that. So that's how we did it.
Interesting. Max, from an operator's perspective, you're one of the bigger operators here in Berlin. How did you manage with all the cancellations of thousands of customers?
Yeah, so what we did, probably because it was not that much of orders which you had to handle, we called all our clients who have pre-booked and prepaid and asked them to maybe find a date, something in the second half of the year, or if they want to take a voucher instead of getting a refund. And I think the communication from our team was very good with the clients. We had the time to talk to them in person. This was something I think that makes a big difference, and that's why we had around 75% of all pre-booked and prepaid bookings, which we could switch into a voucher or into a further future date.
Okay, cool. And the remaining 25%, you also did vouchers, or how did you cope?
No, for the remaining 25, we had to refund the money then.
Okay, interesting. So that's, I guess, an interesting topic for many of operators who are also with us today. So all of us, I guess, had to manage a lot of reservation, had to manage to cancel a lot of reservations. So I think that's one of the works we all had to do through the past weeks to manage there. So also interesting to get your perspective. There's one question on picking up again, one question from Rob Woodford. Do you see a pickup in private tours as opposed to group tours first? So question here on the regrouping, would you say, okay, is it private products first, group product first? Maybe from your own perspective, how do you see when things pick up again? You have also private product, you could say. What's your perspective on that?
So maybe we can compare that a little bit to the lockdown phase. So first in Berlin or in Germany, they shut down the theaters, the movie theaters and the cinemas, and like the spaces for like 500,000 people and more. And on the last lockdown, they just locked then us for instance, for example, we do have like groups of 2 to 6 players, so very small private tours which are exclusively in their rooms. And that's why I would say private tours will be the first one which they pick up again before group tours.
That would also be in line with our expectations. Depends on your region or where you're based. What we are seeing is that like the guiding principle for the government is to avoid reinfections. So obviously they want to avoid groups of people who don't know each other, who are not in contact regularly with each other anyway. They want to avoid these things. And so typically you would expect private tours of whatever kind of tour to pick up before group tours are allowed again. Or also what we are seeing, for example, in China as well, that just there's a cap on the size of tours, so to say, which then de facto your group tour becomes a de facto private tour, a near private tour. So that goes in the same direction. So that would be maybe positive news for you, Rob, if you're doing private tours, that you should be amongst one of the first to pick up, or if not, that would be my thinking what we would invite you to do if you're doing tours, is to keep 2 things in mind. First of all, you're gonna keep private tours, so smaller group tours will pick up first again. And second of all, domestic visitors will pick up first. So people from your city, people from the region will come first after international tourists coming back again. So that would be one of the invitations we would do to say, okay, is your product ready for domestic visitors? Does it need another pivot to really accommodate domestic visitors? Do you have a good product for people from the same city where you're also based? And that would be the things to reflect upon maybe for you as a tour operator. Maybe that's the point for you as well, Rob. Going back, since 20th, there's no real business as it was before. So what are you doing right now? Are you basically completely closed down? Are you still having some initiatives? How do you cope with the crisis?
So of course we had to do some internal regulations, not only home office. So there are some employees which are working less than before, of course, and still we're trying to find some solutions how we can maybe get some tiny parts of the revenue inside of the crisis. A nice example from our VR licensees from Den Haag. What they do, I think it's wrong, Den Haag in English, right? How is it translated?
Samuel can tell us.
The Hague.
Yeah. Den Haag, thank you.
The Hague.
Den Haag, for the records. There's a licensee who licensed our VR software, and they of course have a lot of hardware which they can't use at the moment. So what they do is they rent these hardware out to customers. They can book them a slot on the website, and they bring all the hardware and all the game software to their houses, and then they can play for a couple hours and do something else in their home than usual. And for our classic game, I mean, the Easter season is directly affected. What we did now in the last 72 hours was to create like a...
Max brought us a specific example here today, so you can see it live in the camera.
So yeah. It's a card game at the end. It's called Flocke and die Hasenbande. So it's like a game which people can play at home, especially for the Easter days. They can hide some stuff. The kids can collect the stuff, and the adults can puzzle or riddle the game. This is like something which we're now selling on our online shop to get some revenue, but of course to stay also in contact with our customers and our clients, so that they don't forget about us, and that they maybe planning to come back to us whenever they can.
Wow, interesting. Good that you're keeping up the spirit. Samuel, do you have some stories to share on operators on your platform where you say, okay, this is interesting. How do you see as initiatives? What kind of initiatives do you see working in this crisis, which our operators maybe can take as inspiration to also do something on their own?
Right. So I think that in general, what is working, what is important to do is to keep a connection alive, sort of with the customers you have. So we are trying to do it for the customers that come through us. With our operators, we're sending sort of inspirational theme content and like traveling from home content. We have a Headout from home initiative going on, where like we try to really build very comprehensive, both with virtual tours, series, films, playlists, everything, to kind of like, stay identified as a kind of like experiential, dreamlike platform, and keep the connection to what they had booked and who they had it booked with alive. And I think that if operators have their own kind of, base of customers, they should, use that and try to generate that. And then what we're seeing a bit is, of course, virtual experiences. When you're talking about attractions and museums, it's going to be hard to really kind of replicate that. Although what Max did seems pretty cool. But you also need to be able to, and it's not always simple. When you have a lot of foreign customers, you can't really ship stuff to them right now. What seems to be working is, I think, people are kind of realizing that this is a difficult situation also for for operators, for companies, it's difficult. But we have scheme support. But if we focus on tourism a lot, tour guides are in a very, very difficult situation. And I've seen a lot of initiatives around like virtual tours, where like tour guides can really set up their own experience, like use the webinar software and really build something interactive and really kind of like create something as quality in terms of interaction, like show their knowledge, show how charismatic they are, and which is usually donation based, because it's not about kind of company sales, and most of it goes directly to the guide themselves. And so we're trying to kind of, right now, what we're doing, and some of our partners who are here are doing that, we're trying to compile everything that we have, like make sure that we kind of have it all organized by cities, by themes, and that we can find that as a way for help operators stay in touch with their users like that, and support some of their stakeholders like that.
Really interesting. Again, Our goal here is today to share a lot of knowledge from experts, from industry veterans, to give you examples, to give you inspirations, how you can cope, how you can behave in these times of crisis. So very happy to have Max from Exit. We are an Exit Life Escape Games here in Berlin, and Samuel from Headout, the European lead from Headout, here with us today. You can also find a lot of information on our website on bookingkit.net. We compiled all kind of information, both from legal perspective, inspiration, how other operators deal with that. And I just learned 3 things as inspirations you maybe can take to say, okay, what can I do in these times of crisis? I learned voucher sales, and that's something really, I think, really working well, still underestimated. We are seeing that on the platform. People are willing to spend money now also on vouchers to support leisure products. They are looking forward to see leisure, to do leisure things again in the future. So they're willing to do that. If you did not do that yet, please think about selling vouchers on your website. Think about doing a good deal also for the customer. We shared some tips also in last week's webinar, which you can find online as well. And we have tons of information also on our website. Second of all, I would invite you to think about, do you have offline products to be sold? We just saw a Max example of an Easter product. I think Easter season is coming up, and even though with a high probability in most of the European countries will be in lockdown also over Easter, people still will want to actually gift something over Easter. Even if grandparents cannot see their child or their grandchild, they will want to gift them something. We're seeing people picking up to e-commerce who maybe did not wear like real e-commerce ambassadors before. So I think this is great chances for all of us to offer gift products, which can be vouchers, Easter products, something customized. And that's also what we are seeing on BookingKit, picking up fairly successful, so also something to keep in mind. And third, we had last week the example of the London Museum. So virtual tours offer virtual products, all kind of virtual products. So how can you keep the experience you offer alive in order to keep the connection to your end customers, to your customers, to really keep that in line and become top of mind once things are open again? People will want to come back there. And one interesting perspective also Max told me earlier to say, how can we actually transform a life escape product, which is a classic offline product? So I get locked in a room, I have to find out of it. Is there a way to get that in a digital way?
Yeah, what we're trying at the moment, we're prototyping to check if we can put our game masters, which usually stand outside of the room and just guiding the offline or the team if they're joining our rooms. If we can put them inside the room, giving them a 360 degrees camera on their head, and maybe also like communicate with the classic monitoring system inside the rooms, so that people can maybe group chat via Zoom or other platforms and guide this game master through the room and find the solution on the virtual way. This could be something which, of course, is not the same experience if you're inside the room by yourself with your friends or your families, but it could be something which we could offer if the lockdown stays for more than a couple of weeks.
Great. I love that kind of thinking to really say, okay, how can I do something in these times? Maybe also, Samuel, when we talked earlier, you shared some inspiring stories to say, okay, what can I do right now to actually take useful time in this lockdown period? My business is maybe closed. What can I do today? How can I use this time? What do you recommend your suppliers, your operators on your platform? How can they actually invest now into the future? Is there anything you can share from that perspective?
Yeah, so I think the first thing in that, of course, everyone's doing their own way, but is like people have to secure their future, see what grants they can get, what help they can get, whatever they can do in place to kind of like confirm that there's no existential threat, and that's still a worry for a good amount of people, because not all governments are communicating the same way. So I think it's important to tell our operators that like we're aware of this and we're not like trying to put pressure on them, but it's like we do know that this is also a difficult and stressful time, and that should be the first thing. And we try to bring support into we're trying to compiling all the information we can from everywhere about like also European Union level tourism measures and things like this. We try to kind of lobby with some bigger museums, public entities that we also work with, that some of our partners work with, from a different position to kind of support with that. Then, I mean, it's it's not a great situation, but what it does give is an opportunity to do things that you normally don't have the time to do. So, optimize your organization, streamline every process, like revisit, like make sure that every cent of a euro you spend anytime is well spent and should be spent even in the future. And most likely you'll make pretty big savings for the years to come as well. No, and then I think now is a good time. What we're trying to like, because we have this kind of curated model where we really kind of co-design experiences and tours with partners, and we don't just like aggregate everything we can find. There's much more time to do that than normal. Especially there is the pretty unique occasion to work on products that will be relevant for summer 2021. Summer 2020, whatever happens, will not be that. There's no real opportunity for growth there. And I mean that's quite rare. And so we're getting partners that potentially are a bit bigger, that have tech teams that can really work with like, we can have projects that involve our tech team and partner tech teams. We definitely like our account management team has more time to spend with the product teams of some of our partners. So it's and it's also, I think, naive to think that it will go back and people will want to do exactly the same things and nothing will have changed. Like in the end, people's minds are changing. They're staying home. They're going through things, and there needs to be a way where like we use that also to think of different ways. Like we take the time to reflect on the experiences we're offering, the products we're offering. And I mean, for sure, in Headout, you have a partner that can support you through that process and that will test the commercializing of it, that will assist you with the data once that is live, etc. So that's one thing that we're doing with a few partners. I can't tell successful ones yet because that's starting only, but pretty confident.
Okay, interesting. I think that's also in line with what I heard. I talked back in the week when ITB and Arrival, both travel or touristic and tourist conferences, did not take place. Still, a lot of people came to Berlin, so we had the opportunity to exchange with a lot of operators, and a lot of operators told me, okay, now is actually the time I'm taking for more strategic projects. The strategic projects I never had time for because I always said, okay, I have so many visitors, I can't really change my operator flow. I can't do that now. So a lot of them are taking the time, and actually in line with what we are seeing from many operators is that a lot of people are now preparing for when things pick up again. So we are slowly getting back to the new normality. And I think what we are seeing in China, one very important topic or one very important point we are seeing there is resellers helping this pickup phase again, because they can steer the demand to the different suppliers who are actually open again, who are able to offer products. So if I, as operator, want to work with Headout, what kind of operators do you take on your platform? How is the best way to approach you? What's the best way to say, okay, I want to work with you guys? When does it make sense to work with you guys?
Wait, I'm not sure. What do you mean, when does it make sense?
No, well, I'm an operator today. I want to work with Headout. How does that work?
Right.
What kind of operators do you work together with? What should I know about that?
Right. So, I mean, we work with actually a quite diverse range of operators, because we work from production companies for shows and musicals on Broadway, on the West End, or on Potsdamer Platz, as much as we work with tour operators who do walking tours or food tours in cities. And some, I think we work with some like paragliding and surf operators in Asia. So really quite diverse. The idea is if you have something to offer that is something to do that addresses to a person and meets certain quality requirements that works. What was more restrictive until now is, of course, that we were approaching the geographic expansion quite slowly. So we were, for example, in Europe only still in 14 cities when this year started. And the good thing is what we're definitely using this time to do is expand into a whole host of geographies, because our launch process and our onboarding process is lengthy, because we go over the products, because we curate the products, and because usually we try the products, but that might be difficult this time. But like we've never launched into a cities where someone didn't go from Headout for a week or two, went on a lot of experiences, looked at like the queue flows, the like customer experience, went as a mystery guest and so on. So we can't do it exactly as physically, but at least we have more time to find a way to do that virtually, to do the research. And from the distance, you can do it from multiple cities at a time. So you can, I mean, anyone can reach to me at samuel@headout.com, and I can distribute that. Like, that'd be great. In general, I would say what is good is we prefer to work with partners who have a taste for curation a bit and have a taste for customization a bit. So we might not run, we probably won't run, I mean, I'm not going to name competitors, but if you think of very orange or very green companies in the same space, we're not so much trying to have the exact same tours and the exact same supply. We know our demographic. We have a quite specific, much younger demographic. We have like over 2/3 of customers under 40 years old. So that's fairly specific. We know the country bases quite well, so we're able to tell you which languages we want it in, if there needs to be differences based on the languages, if the duration should be the same or not, the level of detail, what kind of audiences prefer to pay for a smaller group, what kind of audiences prefer to pay for a longer tour, for example. So yeah, I mean, then, if you have an attraction, you can't tailor your attraction, but we might look into like specific products, early entry products, product with add-ons, how to like help you cross-sell, upsell. So ideally, yes, any partners in let's say, like a fairly well-visited city in Europe, maybe some of the like top 100 something visited cities in Europe, who has a taste for like product development, product curation, is more than welcome to reach out to us.
Great, thanks so much for sharing, Samuel. Europe lead of Headout, and with me here today in the studio is Max, managing director and founder of Exit, both VR, so virtual reality version, and also a live escape version based here in Berlin. So we have time, a couple of minutes left for some questions. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in chat. There's also tons of information you can find on our website on www.bookingkit.net. So there's also in a blog, and we have a compiled version of all the information in relationship to COVID-19. So coming from a legal standpoint, what kind of government support you can get in your local region, and also a lot of inspiration how other operators are taking the crisis, are taking the situation, what they are doing there. So don't hesitate, you should check that out online to get inspiration. What can you be doing today? And one of the things Samuel just walked us through their view on things, how to actually join Headout. I would invite you to actually recheck your reseller connections, your reseller corporations. That could be one of the strategic projects you can do. One very easy thing, if you're currently using BookingKit, you can just go into the marketing section of BookingKit and select platforms, and then get a list of platforms which could work for you. One of the things, a very easy way to get connected to Headout is to just connect to a Headout there from your account, and the colleagues will then get back to you, discuss how to best put your products on Headout. And there's a lot of different platforms you can do. So that's one of maybe the strategic things you never had time for, you can be doing right now. So that's one invitation we'd give you. Maybe Max, from your perspective, apart from resellers, is there any strategic projects where you're saying, okay, this is what we are taking currently about the time? You talked a bit about, okay, maybe also thinking about what kind of costs do you have already, but what kind of strategic projects are you taking the time for now?
Yeah, so of course we are thinking about how we can perform after the crisis is over. So what we did, we're checking all our actual contracts with our partners, distributors, and also we're thinking about how long is it possible to stay in our location for now? Shall we maybe look for something else right away? So we're taking this crisis more or less to understand and to control ourselves a little bit. What is the organic growth how was the organic growth in the last years?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Max from Exit, Live Escape here in Berlin, Exit VR, Samuel, Europe lead from Headout. Thanks so much for taking the time with us here today. So, our format is designated to compile all kind of expert information of inspiration from other operators. How can you handle the current situation? What can you do in the current situation? This is a weekly format, so you can check in next week again. In the meantime, you can get a lot of information on bookingkit.net. In our blog, there's a special page also dedicated to what you can do in this COVID-19 situation. So please don't hesitate to check it out. There's tons of inspiration. There's tons of information, both what governments offer, what from a legal perspective might be important to you, from articles from industry veterans who actually give you advice how you can behave today. And I'm looking forward to see you back here in 1 week. Thanks again, Samuel, European lead of Headout, for joining us here today. Thanks, Max, from Exit here today in Berlin. Thank you so much for having the time. Thank you so much for spending the time with us. See you back next week. Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.